to combine the IFLS 3, IFLS 4, and the IFLS 5 to gain the individual panel data, at an individual level. And the sample are restricted to married female aged 15 to 64 years old. The sample selection refers to the definition of working age by OECD. And the married female is chosen because the majority of females in Indonesia aged 10 years old and above are already married. In addition, the previous studies on labor supply focus on the family context in decision making. We model the probability of female I in year 3 being in the labor force based on the following equation. The dependent variable is FLFP, which is a dummy variable which takes value 1 if female participate in the labor force and 0 otherwise. And the main independent variable is EDUC, or female years of schooling, and its square. And the control variables include the individual characteristic variables, husband characteristic variables, and household characteristic variables. Since the dependent variable is a dummy variable, a probit regression is an appropriate choice. But the study also conduct the estimation using instrumental variable probit regression, since several studies found that educational attainment might be endogenous. The further education is chosen as instrumental variable because it qualifies two instrumental variable requirements, which are the instrument exogeneity and instrument relevance. However, because there are two variables that might be endogenous, which are the education and its square, this study requires a minimum 2 IV. Therefore, this study will use further education and its square as IV. As comparison, the study also conducts the analysis using female working hours as dependent variables. We proceed to the results. This is the summary statistic of the samples. There are 14,055 observations in the sample, and on average, the probability of female participate in the labor force in the sample is 0.65. This indicates that the samples, the data in the sample, the majority of the samples is participate in the labor force. And educational attainment range from 0 to 20 years old to 20 years, which with mean 6.9 years. We proceed to the probit and IV probit estimations. From probit and IV probit estimation, we find that education significantly affect female labor force participation in Indonesia. And all of the estimation results also find that the years of schooling has a negative effect on FLFP and female working hours. And the years of schooling square has a positive effect on FLFP and female working hours. This indicates a U-shaped relationship between education and FLFP in Indonesia. The U-shaped relationship between education and FLFP is related to family income. When household income is low, female will go to work to help their family. This is the reason why the female labor force participation is initially high. As family income rise, the female will have more opportunities to study and leave the labor force. As a result, female labor force participation decrease. Over time, the female labor force participation will increase again because females with higher education are more likely to be accepted in the jobs, especially in the formal sector. The U-shaped relationship shows a non-linear effect of education on female labor force participation. Therefore, to determine the effect of 1 year of education, we will have to calculate the derivation from each estimation result. For the estimation where we use female working hours as dependent variable, we will calculate the derivation based on the IV estimation results. And in the estimation with female labor force participation as dependent variable, we will calculate the derivation from the average marginal effect from profit estimation. So we find that the first year of education will reduce the probability of female lab participate in the labor force by 1.7%, and each additional years of education will continue to reduce the probability until reaching the turning point of 6 years of education. After that, the additional years of education will increase the probability. Meanwhile, for working hours, the first year of education will reduce the working hours by 2.75 hours, and each additional year of education will continue to decrease working hours until reaching the turning point of 12 years of education. Because the previous results showed that education has a significant effect on female labor force participation, but it did not show the level of education that has the largest influence on female labor force participation. Therefore, the study re-estimates the profit estimation by dividing the samples into 3 groups of education, which are the group of education with 0 to 6 years of education, group with 7 to 11 years of education, and the group with 12 years education and above. So based on this estimation, we find that the highly educated females, especially upper secondary and post-secondary school, have a larger probability to participate in the labor force. From this study, we can conclude that education significantly affects female labor force participation in Indonesia. And the study also confirmed the U-shaped relationship between education and FLFP. From average marginal effect, we find that the first year of education will reduce the probability of female labor force participation by 1.7%, and each additional year of education will continue to reduce the probability until reaching the turning point of 6 years of education. After that, the additional years of education will increase the probability of FLFP. And from profit estimation, we also find that the highly educated females, especially upper secondary and post-secondary school, have a larger probability to participate in labor force. Our findings have an important implication for policy in Indonesia. The first is because we find that the higher education have a significant effect on FLFP. The policy that aims to increase access to higher education for women needs to be improved. The government can increase the effectiveness of the current program by providing better information about the importance of college and availability of tuition assistance for underinformed and underprivileged communities. And this study also using the control variable of the number of children aged 0 to 4 years old. And this variable found to be negatively affect the FLFP. So that policy that supports working mother, such as childcare subsidy and telework option, can encourage female labor force participation. However, this study also have some limitations. The first one is because the study only focus on the supply side factors that influence female labor force participation. We do not include the demand side factors of labor market. The stagnation of FLFP in Indonesia might be because the lack of employment opportunities but this is beyond the discussion of this paper. And to overcome the indigeneity problem, the study only used the father's education and is square as IV. The further study is expected to explore stronger IV to produce more accurate results. I think that's all for my presentations. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, thank you for Miss Rizka. And we have time about 7 minutes, and maybe I can add for 5 minutes for discussion. Gender. Until now, still interest topics to be discussion. Some traditions not really care about education for female. Okay, for participants who want to ask, can ask directly or write it on box text. Raise hand, please, for participants who want to ask. Okay, maybe I want to ask one question for Miss Rizka. Why you use for quadratic model?
Okay. Thank you, Miss Atika, for the question. Maybe I should share screen on my PowerPoint again. Okay. So the reason why I choose include a quadratic function in this model is because several studies have found a U-shaped relationship in Indonesia. For example, the study by Klassen in 2019, and also other countries such as Sri Lanka also find the U-shaped pattern in their country. And I think why the increment of educational attainment does not necessarily increase FLFP is uh, because the U-shaped relationship is happen in Indonesia. So I think that the effect of education not linear but have a non-linear effect. So that's the reason why I choose to include a quadratic form in my model.
Okay, so based on this describe, you can see as non-linear relationship between education, female labor force participation and education. Okay. For the participant, raise your hand, please. Who want to ask for this session? Okay, mungkin for Ms. Rizka, what do you think about? In fact, I found many women, educated women, neglect their basic duties as a mother. What do you think about that fact that I found some educated women neglect their basic duties as mother?
Okay. I think a role as mother is very hard. I think that a mother is very a hero, I think, in every family because they have to do the household duties, also take care of their children, and some mother also have to work. So I think the reason why some mother neglected their children, I think because maybe uh, I think every mother must do not want to neglect their children, but I think it's because of the situation that this cannot, the situation do not support them to take care of the children. For example, like maybe his husband do not want to take care the children, so that the mother also have to working. So I think that I think every mother must want to take care of their children, but maybe it's because of the situation that it will hard for them to take care of their children. So that's the reason why I think that in my policy implication that Indonesia have to make a policy that supports a working mother, such as providing a child care subsidy. Because from based on my little knowledge that Indonesia do not have this policy like most developed country that have encouraged women to work, because they also provide the child care subsidy in for the woman. So that I think if we want to female to more participate in the labor force, we have to accommodate their needs by providing a child care subsidy.
Okay, thank you for the explanation, Ms. Rizka. And I think your policy implication is important because less policy that support working mother existent for now.
Yeah.
Okay, I think for this session, we have follow discussion with interesting discuss. And thank you for Mr. Rizka. And I will invite for the second presenter, still about impact of education. We have discussed about female education, relationship between female education and female labor force. And now we will discuss about impact of education for economic. I will invite for the second presenter, Miss Annie Lestari.
Okay, thank you, Miss Ati. Yeah. Sorry for not open my cam because of I have just eye surgical, so I cannot see the like from the camera in long time. So thank you. I will share about my presentation. Yeah. Yeah, is can see. Okay. So we will discuss about the impact of education as human capital investment on economic growth in Indonesia. So I take the background, education as an investment of human capital, yeah, is have two components, yakni components of future consumption and components of future income. Investment in skills and knowledge raise future income, while the satisfaction derived from education is a component of consumption. As a constant component of consumption, education is a source of future use that are not included in a measured national income. So, in calculating the return on investment in education, the component of future income must be carefully considered. Okay, the method is use participant from the data from the World Bank. So I experienced join in SSRBN for call paper 2, and I have access data from World Bank. I get information for access the data from World Bank, so I choose the data from that. I'm use it's 30 until 18 observation data for economic growth. Yeah, this is use annual series data of economic growth in Indonesia for the period 1984 until 2019 using ARDL or auto-regressive distributed lag. Yeah, and then some tests use auto-adjusted L, Darwin-Watson statistic, and F statistic. Okay, this is the calculation for perspective of human capital theory model in the following equation, where T is output, KT is money capital, LT is labor, and HT is human capital. Introducing technology explicitly into the following models, and the YT, F, KT, LT, HT, and TT. And the result is this. For the long-term result and the short-term result. Okay, so the discussion is used from the data of reported adjusted R, Darwin-Watson statistic, and F statistic indicate a suitable model. Table 1 present the long and short-term results and of the model. Long-term results shows that human capital has a direct and significant relationship with economic growth at the 5% level. However, in the short term, it is not significant. So it will significant in the long-term result. And this is consistent with both theory and reality because over the past decade, the rate of growth of the Indonesian economy has increased and remains very sustainable. The technology variable is positive and significant at the 5% level. The labor and capital coefficient are all positive and significant. The adjusted R2, double Watson, and F statistic indicate that the model is suitable. Nah, and then human research, especially for education, are significant for economic growth, which means that an increase in human capital will have an impact on increasing economic growth. The technology variable shows a positive and significant effect on economic growth. In the short run, the human capital variable is not significant. They show that human capital does not have a significant effect on economic growth in the short term. This means that human capital, especially growth in the short term, however, technology is positive and significant at the 50% level. That is, technological advance accelerate growth even in the short term. The labor and the money capital variables are significant in the short run and at the 5% level. Conclusion: human capital plays a long-term role in economic growth. This shows that human capital investment requires a process to provide returns on investment. However, human capital boosts economic productivity when the human capital formation is complete. Technology is very supportive in accelerating the formation of human capital and is very good at boosting an economic support by labor and financial capital. So it can be concluded that human capital is a long-term investment in driving the economy. Okay, thank you.
Okay. We have more than 15 minutes to discuss. Okay, for all participants who want to ask for Miss Annie Lestari, raise your hand please.
Dari Pak Pep tambahannya ada QC antartip kalau melihat Miro Kanban Pak Pep sebetulnya memang.
For Miss Annie Lestari, can you show me the model of ARDL?
ARDL. Okay.
Yes, you use. For other please who want to ask for this session, you can ask directly or write it in the chat box.
Okay. Okay, Miss Ati.
ARDL. Long-term result. What is the meaning of delta ln YT minus 1?
Delta?
In this short-term result, yes.
What is mean by delta ln YT minus 1? Okay. I will check the data because my eyes have just surgical, so maybe I can confirm it later, Miss Ati.
As I know, RDL is a regression from dependent variable with the lack of dependent, and you show it in short-term result. So I want to ask you the meaning of coefficient of delta ln -1 in this short-term result.
Okay. So I will check it again. Can I have a time, please, Miss Ati, for I seeing the data?
For other participants who want to ask, you can ask directly or write it on the chat box. Yeah.
Miss, okay,
Yes.
Miss Ati, pardon me, because it will take time to see the data, because my eyes have surgical, so no clearly see for the data. So I will keep it for the question, and maybe if we'll have time addition, I will explain it more
Okay.
like that.
For next question from Miss Vita Kartikasari from UNS.
Okay.
Miss Vita, do you want to ask directly?
Yeah, thank you, Miss Ati. I want to ask the author.
Okay, Miss.
Did you do some robust tests to make sure the model was stable?
Okay.
Like Kusum test or other robust tests?
Do you
Thank you.
do the robust test to make sure that the model you reach was stable? Miss Annie, please. Miss Annie Lestari and Miss Sri Harnani. Both of you can answer this question.
Thank you, Miss Vita, for the question. For the answer, I will consider it because it will it will need to check the data again, and I cannot see clearly the data. So maybe if you want to communicate with me for the if I use or no for the robust data, you can take communication with me by WhatsApp like that. I will give give my contact to you.
Okay. All of this question is to make sure if your result is stable and good conclusion, good result for Indonesian. And the next question from Mr. Bonix Maulana. Do you want to ask directly, Mr. Bonix?
Yeah, maybe sorry for late to your presentation, but I just need maybe you have any projection about how long to take time for Indonesia to get good economic growth with this current condition? Because in your presentation is talking about the evidence from the education and economic growth. Maybe today, maybe your finding is something so significant, but maybe you can explain in your perception how long it will be take for Indonesia can maybe to can catch or to upscale their growth, economic growth. Thank you.
Okay, Miss Annie, please.
Okay, thank you for Mr. Bonix for ask for the how long to take time for Indonesia to get good economic growth. Yeah, actually, I teach in Tamansiswa education, and I hope for that education in Indonesia, because education is key, key and play role play, key is the first key and elements key for developing economic growth in Indonesia. So I need when I see when the education have development fast, it needs the teacher, I think SDM, how to human research in the education sector, growth in education sector. When the human research in education sector is growth too, it will enforce, it will force to economic growth. If I decide how long take a time, it will depends on how we create and how we grow up to the human research, especially human research in education sector. I think it's my answer for the Mr. Bonix questions.
And maybe your conclusion can be implemented for normal condition, not input shock like COVID right now.
Okay.
Yeah, I know it's your in your explanation is about long term and short term, but we don't know about how long it's short term, how long it's the long term. Maybe if we can have some projection about maybe you think this maybe for, as you know, our presidential system is 5 years length, so maybe it is important it is so important your finding to give us some insight for a policy, because maybe your finding is in 5 years or in maybe 10 years it will be we can catch our economic growth moving faster. Maybe that just my opinion. Thank you.
Okay.
For Miss Annie Lestari,
Okay.
Mr. Monix Maulana think
Mm-hmm.
in your research can found how long the time for Indonesia to get good economic growth with current condition. I don't know. ARDL can ensure the time to get good economic growth or no. As I know, dynamic panel can ensure it, but ARDL, I'm not sure. Okay, maybe
Thank you for the suggestion and for the opinions. I will consider it and I will done it again.
Okay, thank you for Miss Annie Lestari and for Mr. Bonix, Miss Vita, and all participants for this discussion. And we will follow for the next presenting. Still about education, from Miss Vika Kartika Sari with the title The Role of Education Towards Economic Growth, Evidence from Indonesia. For Miss Vita Kartika Sari, please introduce first. Miss Kartika Sari.
Okay. Can you see the PowerPoint?
Yes. Read it, please. Introduce yourself, please.
Okay. Wait. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, colleagues. Let me introduce myself. My name is Vita from Universitas 11 Maret, and we conducted the research. The main topic is about education, and the title is The Role of Education Toward Economic Growth Evident from Indonesia. The background of the research, where we know that when we note several researchers argue that community education status can support national economic performance, and the effectiveness of education can be seen in access to education, and higher education will form a qualified workforce as human capital in economic development. Also, we know that development of science and technology has transformed the human life in the world. Yeah, so it believes that education can increase economic growth through creativity, productivity, skills, and competencies. The influence of education on economic performance is a crucial issue. Investment in human capital in form of education is a necessity to encourage economic development in Indonesia. And some studies prove that education can increase per capita income and also reduce the unemployment rate. Some previous studies mentioned that in the 1960s and 1970s, the concept of human capital emerged, which was initiated by experts explaining the importance of education as a main element of human capital. In the production process, education can be performed with some such as job training or seminars, workshops, and so on. And based on neoclassical economic theory, production requires basic input, namely capital, labor, and land to increase the use value of goods and services. And according to Menkew, Romer, and Weil, and other economists, human capital is an economic input so that human capital can be developed properly through education. And several previous studies confirm that education has a positive and negative impact on economic performance both in developing and developed countries. Full screen. Okay. Okay, still loading. Okay, this figure explains the level of school participation in Indonesia is still low. During the 2011 until 2000, there has been no significant increase from year to year. And more worrying from the data, illiteracy rate in Indonesia during 2011 until 2020 still high if we compare to another countries. So Indonesia, as an emerging country, has a very wide area with challenges in providing education to reduce educational disparities in all regions in Indonesia. So the study aimed to estimate the influence of education, labor, and capital on the gross regional domestic product in 34 provinces in Indonesia for the period 2006 until 2019. Okay. The methodology that we used in this research was panel data estimation. We use static panel data with balanced panel based on neoclassical production model. The dependent variable was growth regional domestic product. The dependent variable was gross regional domestic product growth, and the independent variables were labor, foreign direct investment, and school as proxies for education variable. Okay, we conduct the estimation with panel data with 3 model. Common effect model, fixed effect model, and random effect model. This is the model. The first equation is common effect model. The second equation was fixed effect model, and the third equation was random effect model. And the result, we discuss all of the model. Although the best model from the Chow test and Lagrange multiplier test, the best model was random effect, but we discuss all of the result of the model. Based on the common effect model, labor had a significant influence on gross regional domestic product. This indicates the workforce effectiveness in Indonesia. Bali had the highest labor participation rates. Second was East Nusa Tenggara, and third was Papua. Capital had a positive and significant influence on gross regional domestic product, and this condition indicates we can develop our confidence of investor to encourage the industrial sector in Indonesia, and education had a positive influence on gross regional domestic product in 34 provinces in Indonesia. And based on the fixed effect model, labor had a significant influence. Capital and education also had a significant influence on gross regional domestic product. And based on the model selection test, the random effect model was the best model. According to the random effect model, labor had a significant influence on gross regional domestic product. Here we note that productivity is related to the hours worked. Population working with the highest excess working hours in Indonesia were Gorontalo, Kalimantan, and Jakarta. And the workforce in Indonesia is productive both in the formal and non-formal sectors. The second independent variable was capital, had a significant and positive influence on gross regional domestic product. Increased investment is needed for regional development to drive leading sector of its province in Indonesia. And education had a significant and positive impact on gross regional domestic product too. The integrated learning process leads to an improvement in the quality of human capital. However, the biggest challenge is the equitable education throughout Indonesia, so that development can also be carried out evenly. We can conclude as a determinant in economic development, education could encourage human capital as a long-term investment in the activity of economy. And based on empirical evidence in various countries, shows positive and negative influences between education and economic performance. And education in Indonesia, as we know, is divided into 3 categories: basic education, secondary education, and higher education. Education in terms of infrastructure and quality is still not equitable in all provinces in Indonesia, and the literacy rate in Indonesia was quite low and is still a crucial issue. And based on the result of this research, there was a significant influence on economic growth in 34 provinces in Indonesia. The positive coefficient shows the higher and the better education, the more it encourages economic growth. Foreign direct investment as a proxy for capital had a positive influence on economic performance, and labor also had a positive influence on economic growth in 34 provinces in Indonesia during a period of research. Thus, the result related with the neoclassical theory, where capital, labor, and education are the key variables in production activities. So we can give some policy implication that can be formulated. First, we need strategic policies for quality-oriented education improvement. And second, we need improve the literacy program to all corners of Indonesia, because education is a long-term investment for Indonesia. Thank you for your attention. Maybe any question or feedback or maybe correction?
Okay, thank you for Ms. Vita. And I think from these 3 papers have the same conclusion, basically. Education have positive impact for economic in the long term. Okay, all participants who want to ask, you can raise your hand and ask directly. Any question? Okay, maybe I want to ask for Ms. Rizka. In your result PowerPoint, you showed 3 models: pulse, fixed effect, and random effect. Finally, you choose random effect. Can you tell me the reason you choose random effect as the model? Because your data is fixed, 34 provinces. Actually, without Hausman test, you can choose fixed effect as the model. Can you explain why you use Hausman test and must we choose one of 3 models you run and you interpret one model, random effect model?
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Ati. We estimated first with the common effect for the first step. And after that, we estimated with the fixed effect model. To choose the best model between common and fixed, we conducted a choice test, and and the result was the best model, fixed effect, as you mentioned before, Ms. Ati. After that, we estimated the data with the random effect. And we run the Hausman test, and the value probability, p-value probability Husman test was not significant. So we test again to select the best model with Lagrange multiplier test, and the probability Bruce-Pagan was significant at 5%. So we conclude that the best model we use in this research was random effect model.
Okay, thank you for your explanation. From Mr. Bonix Maulana, can you ask directly? Maybe for all presenter.
Yeah, sorry for I asking again. Yes, maybe Bufita has a suggestion how to shortcut the long-term effects of education, so our economic growth can be more faster. Maybe, as you know, we have a program Kampus Merdeka or Pendidikan Merdeka. Maybe will be the one of option of that, or maybe you have another ideas or something. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the panic. From Miss Vita, maybe keep the answer first. Miss Rizka Isnaini, can you ask directly?
Okay. Hello, Miss Vita. I would like to ask about the data. As long as I know, the North Kalimantan data was missing since 2006 to 2013, since North Kalimantan was expanded from East Kalimantan in 2013. So I would like to ask whether how do you treat the missing data? Or maybe I just want to make sure does your data only 34 province or maybe just 33 province? I just want to make sure that. Thank you.
Is it clear for Miss Vita?
Thank you for Mr. Bonix Maulana. Do you have suggestion how to shortcut the long-term effect for economic growth, such as program Kampus Merdeka or Pendidikan Merdeka will be one of option for that? Still confusing, Mr. Bonix, I think, because Kampus Merdeka maybe there will be a lot of universities in Indonesia not ready to overcome the Kampus Merdeka activity because of the facilities, human capital, human resources, and etc. And we know that today the higher education in Indonesia is conducting with online Zoom meeting and etc. And there will be any inequality in infrastructure, especially in communication and technology, especially in the little far daerah yang jauh gitu ya, maksudnya. I mean in the village and other region that had no good signal for internet access.
Okay, maybe the burden is online learning, yeah. Is the answer from Miss Vita for Mr. Bonix?
Maybe Mr. Bonix, any suggestion from the Kampus Merdeka?
Yeah, I guess this is a new insight for us, because we will be step forward because of this condition. So we have to know about what the next step for Indonesian education for good economic growth. Yeah, I think. because your findings is so fantastic. We already know about this is important, so we need one solution, or we need something different. I think maybe we can ask the other, we can continue for the other research, such as the meaning of the Kampus Merdeka, how the preparation, how about the perception of the researcher or lecturer or student. So this is we will be create a new perspective of next education in Indonesia. But it's very good. Thank you, Bu Vita.
You are welcome.
This question not only for Ms. Vita, but for all presenter, because from this result, we can elaborate more for this suggestion. Okay, Ms. Vita, Ms. Rizka, Ms. Vita, explain for Ms. Rizka.
Yeah, I would like to explain the data. I'm sorry, Miss Rizka. Thank you for the correction. Actually, we conducted unbalanced panel data that we have the data from North Kalimantan. From 2006 until 2012 was missing. So we just run the data for North Kalimantan start from 2013 until 2019. Sorry, Miss Rizka, but thank you so much for the correction. We use unbalanced panel data, not balanced panel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ms. Vita use unbalanced panel.
Yeah, because the North Kalimantan is the new province.
No data in North Kalimantan for 2006 until 2013. Okay.
Yeah.
What about your response, Ms. Rizka? Any response, Ms. Rizka?
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Vita. You're welcome.
Enough. Okay.
Yeah.
Talk about education. Many things we can discuss here. Any question again from participant? Any question? Okay. From first, maybe I can give one conclusion for our presenter. From first presenter, from variable education have negative impact, but education square have positive impact. Means in the long term, education will have positive impact. From the second presenter, education have positive impact in the long-term equation, not short-term. The last presenter from RAM, random effect model, education have positive impact to boost economic performance. It means education plays important role to boost economic activity. Okay, any question again from all present participants? Okay, if no question again, how have we finished this discussion, Mr. Kusfikar? Can I finish this discussion?
Of course, Miss Atika, you can finish it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kusfikar. And for our presenter and participant, thank you very much for all your present in this parallel session and for our present of the paper and discussion. Thank you very much. and see you in next session.